Hey everybody, Terry here, and I got an oil leak. Welcome back to the channel everybody, Terry here, and today on the BMW Z3 I'm going to go ahead and replace the oil filter housing gasket, which is a very common spot for oil leaks on these cars. Now the process is going to be different depending on if you have the 4-cylinder or the 6-cylinder engine. So this is only going to apply to the 6-cylinder models. As you can see, for the most part it's going to be the same even for the 4-cylinders. There might just be a couple steps where something different might need to get moved out of the way, but for the most part they're pretty close to the same. So just to give a quick overview of what's going to be done, we got to get this oil filter housing, which is a pretty big unit that goes down in here, and so we're going to need to remove the power steering reservoir. I'll take the air box out just to give us some more room. We'll have to remove the alternator, or might have to move the power steering pump as well, and then we can access the actual oil filter housing and get that unbolted so we can remove that. We'll have to disconnect the Vanos oil supply line right here so we can, then pull everything out. So we'll go through the whole process. We'll even have to, the drive belt will have to be removed as well so we can get the alternator out. But we'll go through everything, each step as we go. All right, first things first, I'm going to go ahead and pull the air filter box out. It's just going to be one 10 millimeter fastener right here. Disconnect the hose from the little clip right here. Unplug your MAF sensor right here. And then I'll undo this clamp right here and just keep the MAF sensor attached to the box. It just works a lot easier that way than trying to separate it. Alright, so next is we're going to move the power steering reservoir out of the way. You're going to have two 13 millimeter fasteners right here. I only have one in right now because I recently did a repair, so I didn't fully mount it back in because I knew I'd have to move it again. So I'm just going to take the one out. We'll just set that off to the side. Alright, so I'm going to go and disconnect the battery just because I do need to mess around with the wires and stuff for the alternator, and I don't want to take any chances of this spinning up. So safety first, disconnect your battery. Alright, so I'm going to disconnect the drive belt first. I am wearing gloves just because I recently drove the car, so everything is piping hot, but we're going to make do. So right on your tensioner pulley down here, so right on this tensioner pulley is going to be a dust cap. You can just go in there with your little pry bar and just kind of pop that off. There you go. Just pop that cap off, and then you're going to need a Torx bit. I think it's like a T25 or something. Don't quote me on what it is. Just put it in there. Make sure you get a 3/8 drive version. A 1/4 inch one will snap. It's too much tension on here. There we go. And then you're going to pull until you can slip the belt off, and then you can let go. Nice and easy. Now, I do have the benefits of not having a fan. I did a viscous fan delete, so I already have access in here. If you still have your fan, you'll have to kind of work around it, or you might even need to take it out if you're struggling. Now we'll be able to remove the alternator. Alright, so now I'm going to disconnect this electrical connection right back here. Just push down on the little metal piece right there, and it'll pull right off. Just kind of tuck that aside. Then you're going to have a nice large bolt right here. This is a 16 millimeter. You're going to need to move that one out of here, and then there should be one other bolt underneath that we'll have to get as well. Alright, I'm going to use a little bit of an extension in my breaker bar to break this one loose and try to get underneath the coolant hose here. Get on there. Alright, crack air loose. So there's one, the other one is underneath. There's the first bolt, and I'm making myself a cheat sheet because all these bolts are going to be different lengths, so I want to keep track of which one went where. Don't lose your washers either. So these are going to be different lengths, as you can see. The bottom one was just a little bit longer, so this is why we got to keep track. So I got this one for like the top left, the bottom, and putting them in the same orientation that I take them out, so we don't mess anything up and crack anything. Alright, so looking at it, I can only see the two fasteners. I see two other fasteners directly below it, but I'm pretty confident those two are for the bracket for the power steering pump. So I'm going to go ahead and just take my pry bar and see if I can't pry this to come out, and see if I can't get it to just stop being stuck in here. Alright. It's completely loose now. So I want to try to tilt it to where I can get to the rear of it, because there's going to be your power cable connected directly at the rear right here. So we're going to need to undo this bolt so we can unplug that so we can yank the whole thing out. Alright, so the bolt that's holding the power cable is an 18 millimeter. And now that's disconnected, and we don't want to lose this. Alright, now, fingers crossed, I should be able to just yank the alternator completely out. And there is a perfectly fine looking alternator. So you can get a better look at the rear. This is where your power cable is going to be fastened. So the reason why it was stuck is you have this little air tube that plugs in. So you gotta kind of shimmy it loose to get that to disconnect. Alright, so we now have the alternator removed. So we have easy access in here to get to all of the fasteners for the actual housing itself. But before we tackle any of those, we need to finish doing what we need to do with the top. So that way, once this stuff is loose, we don't run into issues here. So what I mean is, you're going to have your Vanos oil supply line right here This is going to be a 19mm banjo bolt, so you're going to want to get that loose. It's going to have 2 crush washers on there. Now, this is the time when you're doing this project, if you have not replaced this oil supply line, now's the time to do it because you're going to have the whole line out. So make sure you replace that oil supply line as well as get 4 new crush washers because you're going to need one for each end of the hose to re-put this back in. I've already replaced this line to fix a previous oil leak, so mine's brand new. So I'm just going to go ahead and loosen this and I'll just be able to retighten it. But if you're not replacing your hose, but it's still the original one, you'll still need to replace those washers, okay? Because those are crush washers. But mine's brand new, so I should be okay to retighten it without leaks. All right, nice and loose. Before I take it off, my engine, everything is still hot, so there's still going to be some pressure in the engine. Even when your engine's cold, you still should do this, just to ensure that all of the oil that's in your oil filter housing drains into the actual engine itself. I'm going to crack this loose too. All the way until the O-ring comes out. Okay, the O-ring is out. So that's going to allow all that oil that's in there to start draining into the engine. So we're going to let that drain. And then you're going to take this banjo bolt out. A little bit of oil might come out of here, so just clean that up. And don't lose any of that stuff, because you can reuse the banjo bolt if you want, but you will need to replace those washers. All right, so I've already cracked it loose, so I'm going to just take this out by hand. I got my rag there to catch any oil that comes out of this. You can see there's a crush washer right there. And you got your banjo bolt and then the second crush washer. So I'm going to just keep these together for the time being. Alright, that's disconnected. We're good there. You may need to disconnect this purge valve right down here, just to help with pulling the hose and everything through once we get to that point. So just take note, it's just on like a little bracket. There's just a rubber piece on there. You can easily just pull it off that bracket if you need to bring it down. Alright, so I just went and took some paper towel and I put it in the oil supply line as well as the vanos, so that way no dirt gets introduced to those areas. Alright, so this has been nicely draining. It should be good. Let's get down there and tackle those 2 bolts for the power steering pump. I don't know if there's any other fasteners holding that pump in, so as a precaution, we stacked some wooden blocks underneath it, just so that way if it does come completely out, we can just slowly drop it just a little bit without having to fully remove it. And these are going to be 13mm as well. So there's one here and one right there. All right, come in here. Get these nice and loose. Thankfully, nothing's been overly tight. Nothing's been kind of seized or anything like that. So I am seeing that as a wonderful blessing. Yeah, not tight at all. Don't want to let it back out too far because those are long and you don't want to be pushing your ratchets and stuff into your radiator. So I'm getting it enough and then doing it by hand. sure I don't hit my radiator. All right, and yeah, your power steering pump will definitely fall. So I'm happy that I put the blocks there so it didn't just go thunk. You're gonna have another electrical connector right back here. Just kind of pinch it and unplug that one too. Now there's no way you can mess these up between this one and your alternator, because you can see this is a 2-pin and the alternator one is a 3-pin. So there's no way to plug these into the wrong place. So you can just take those off. All right. There's also a connector at the far back, right back here. I don't know if you guys can see it on your angle, but there's another one right back here. We'll go ahead and disconnect that one too. And this one is a 2-pin, so we're not going to want to confuse this one with that one. So what we're going to do is I'm going to label these. I'm going to put this one as A and this one as B, so that way I can put them in the right spot. So I'm going to just plug it back in for the moment so I don't get these mixed up, and I'll label them and then we'll go from there. All right, so I went ahead, I put tape on the plugs. One's got A and one's B, so there's no way for me to mess that up. I'm going to go ahead now. We got the 6 fasteners, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to crack these loose and then we're going to pull these out. All of these are a different length, so this is why it's very important to keep them in the exact same order you take these out. If you put them in the wrong spot and you put these back in, you could crack your engine block when you reattach this to the side of the engine. You don't want that to happen. Okay, so I got all 6 fasteners removed. It's ready to come out. I went and I retightened the cap just so I don't have any oil pour out the top that's saturated in the filter itself. I did have to disconnect the purge valve just so I could get it back to loosen up that fastener in the top right corner. That's the only thing I needed this loose for, was to do that. But it's nice and loose. I should be able to pull it right out. There's 2 dowels that kind of hold this on. You want to be very careful not to damage those little like pins. There's going to be one on the top right corner and one on the bottom left where your gasket sits. You want to make sure you don't damage those, because otherwise this isn't going to seat right. You're going to have a massive oil leak because you won't be able to get this back on. So I'm going to very gently pull this away from the engine. Now you might lose some oil doing this, but hopefully most of it drained. Alright, it's officially away. Now it's just a matter of getting hoses and things to cooperate. Okay, so now I gotta check my oil supply line, make sure I don't have anything wrapped up in that, which I have 1 wire, it looks like, that is going in between there. Let me try to get that wire. Look at all that oil on that wire, see? I'm gonna try to bend my line to pass over this thing. There we go. Okay, now this one. Okay, now pull this out. I might need to do some rotating to actually get this out, just like so. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is your oil filter housing, and there's your gasket right there. We're going to clean this all up and put a nice new one in there. Let me just set this down, careful like. And if we take a look inside here, we definitely have, well, there's some fresh oil leaking there now, but you can see all the old stuff right here. So my gasket was definitely leaking over time. I got a lot of oil all up in here, so this definitely was something that needed to be replaced. So we're going to get all that cleaned out. So if you look right here, there's one of your little centering dowel pin things right here, and then there's one right here. You want to make sure those do not get bent. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sit back on that, okay? Be very careful not to damage those. All right, I'm going to go ahead and start cleaning all this up, and then I'll come back and we'll put the new gasket on. All right, so as you can see, this is your oil supply line. You have easy access to fully replace this. It is difficult to get to this with the alternator and everything installed in the car. That's how I replaced it. So I'm telling you now, if you haven't done it, do it now. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and pop out the old gasket. Just grab a little pick or a screwdriver and just kind of pop it out. And there's our old gasket. And then I went and I bought a replacement gasket. It's this Molly one right here. And we can even match it up before I open the package. And that is a perfect match. So we're good to put this in. Before we do though, we'll clean this area real good so that way we're not trapping any kind of dirt or anything behind the gasket. If you need to scrape the surface a little bit, you can get a real soft little scour pad if you need to, but mine is nice and clean. I can easily just kind of wipe all this off. There's no need for me to scrub anything. But maybe you have some corrosion or something that you got to worry about on yours. And just kind of work my way around to get all this cleaned out. All right, that's got it as clean as I'm going to be happy with. And I got my new gasket right here. We're just going to match it up and then just press it into the little grooves. Make sure it seats in there real nice. And now we'll have a nice lip. The other gasket was so smooth I couldn't even feel it being in there no more. Alright. Now you make sure the side of your engine is clean, which we already went ahead and wiped this down. And we had clogged these up so we wouldn't get any dirt or anything in those ports. So now we can go ahead, make sure this mating surface is clean too. And we'll reseat it on there, but again, be very careful that these little fitment rings don't get damaged in any way. Make sure they're secure and that they're in straight, they're not bent, and very carefully reattach the housing. All right, so got it in. I only have 2 fasteners in right now, the bottom left and the top right one back here, the ones that correspond with those little dowel pins. Those are the 2 fasteners I put in finger tight just to hold this in place and to have everything lined up proper. Now I'm going to put the other fasteners in. I'm just going to make them finger tight. And then when I go to tighten these down, I'm going to crisscross just to ensure that it presses down that gasket properly. So hopefully we will have no more leaks going forward. All right, so I have all 6 of the fasteners snugged up hand tight. You're going to want to tighten these down in a crisscross pattern, and they're going to be 16 pound-feet. Do not over tighten or you can crack your engine block. So 16 pound-feet is all it's going to take. All right, they're all torqued. So now we're going to go ahead and reattach the electrical connections. So we're going to find the one that we marked A to go on this one. And then B went on the one in the back. I already took the purge valve and put it back on its hanger. All right, so now that's connected. This one goes for the alternator, so we can leave it laid there for the time being. So now what we can go ahead and do is get the power steering pump and reattach that. All right, so Tyler's down there snugging up these 2 bolts, and these are also going to be 16 pound-feet. I'm gonna try to hold it.
Oh, there
It went? Okay.
we go.
Alright. That is now back on. Next step is to put the alternator back in. Alright, so I went ahead and put that power cable back on and just snugged this down good. We want to get the air intake right here put back into its spot, and then we can bolt it in and reattach the last electrical connection as well. Alright, alternator is now installed and these two bolts are torqued in, and I will admit it is an embarrassing amount of time to put that back in because the bolts just did not want to line up. So fair warning, it's quite difficult to get that in, and so good luck. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead, connect this connector like that, and then I'm going to reconnect the oil supply line here and tighten that down, and I'm going to get that good and tight. I can't torque that because of the hose right here, so I'm going to just get that good and tight. Then I'm going to get my belt put back on, and then I'm going to start the car so we can see if we have an oil leak before I fasten the power steering reservoir into place, just in case we need to do some disassembly. Fingers crossed though, no leaks. Alright, then for those that need it, this is the routing for your belt. So it's going to go over your water pump, under the pulley, then over the alternator, straight down to your power steering pump, goes around and then into your crankshaft, and then underneath the tensioner pulley and back around. So let's go ahead and put it in. Alright, so the belt is on. Basically you want to put it over your water pump, go straight across to the alternator pulley here. It's going to go straight down to the power steering, and then go straight over to your crankshaft, and then it's going to come up. You're going to need to kind of loop it in because it has to loop around your tensioner pulley. This is the part you put on last because you got to put your tension on the pulley to bring it down to slip this on. So this part is the part you get last. So once everything is in position, just loop it in between the water pump pulley and the crankshaft pulley, and you can get it right in there. So now everything is assembled for the most part outside of us putting the power steering reservoir back in its home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the car so we can make sure that the oil doesn't come pouring out, and if it doesn't, then I can just go ahead and fasten this back in and the repair will be finished. So fingers crossed that everything is tight, no leaks. Alright, so the car is running. There should be no oil. This is all old oil. There's no fresh drips, anything running down. I do believe we fixed it. Job well done, Tyler. We got her done, man.
Hey, you.
Now we just gotta clean this mess with all the old stuff off. So Tyler's starting the cleaning process underneath to get all the old oil spillage out of there. We just got to get the power steering back in place and then put the air box back in, and then this is a job complete. Hey everybody, so I am now in the process of editing this video that you guys are watching, and I realized I didn't film the process of putting the air filter box back in. So I do apologize for that, but it's pretty straightforward. And my previous video with the power steering has that step if you want to go back and see that. So I just want to thank you guys so much for watching this video and supporting the channel. I have plenty more projects coming forward. As always, I'm always looking for more things I can do on the car, whether it needs it or not. I'm going to just keep on replacing things so that way you all can keep learning how to do what you need to do for your Z3. So thank you guys so much. Give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. And go ahead and check out my Instagram at CoolCatTerri for more Z3 content.